Some people won't destroy your life with loud betrayals or obvious lies. They'll do it with kindness, with comfort, with perfectly timed praise. They'll smile when you rise, but quietly cheer when you fall. And the hardest part? You might call them your closest friends. Buddha warned us over 2,500 years ago about 4 types of people who appear loving and loyal, but in truth they drain your energy, block your growth, and slowly erode your peace from the inside out. These are not just ancient figures from royal courts or dusty scrolls. They're in our workplaces, our families, our phones, and sometimes even in our hearts. In this video, we're going to uncover the powerful Buddhist teachings that reveal exactly who these 4 people are, how to spot them, and what to do if they're already in your life. It might change how you see everything and everyone around you. So please, don't skip a single part of this. Every moment is layered with insight that could protect your peace and transform your relationships. And if you find value in the kind of wisdom we share here, if this helps you see more clearly or live more freely, there's one simple free favor I ask of you. Just hit that subscribe button. Let's walk this mindful path together. There are moments in life when you feel surrounded not by enemies, but by smiles. Everyone seems supportive, everyone seems kind. They laugh at your jokes, they say they're happy for you, they even show up when you need them. But something still feels off. Your energy is low, your mind is clouded, your confidence begins to shake. And you can't quite explain why. That's because not all harm comes from those who openly oppose you. Sometimes the deepest wounds are made by those who pretend to care. Their presence doesn't always feel like a storm. It feels like shade, quiet, gentle, deceptive. Buddha taught that the danger often lies not in how someone enters your life, but in how they slowly influence the direction of your path. In ancient India, during his time at the royal court of Kosala, he observed not only kings and warriors, but also the masks people wore to gain favor. Buddha saw how easily kindness could become a weapon, and how friendship could become a disguise for control. What he discovered there wasn't just useful for kings, it's something we all need to understand. Because each of us has a personal kingdom, our mind, our heart, our peace, and we are its ruler. But even the most powerful ruler can be deceived by a trusted advisor. That's why Buddha's insight matters today more than ever. He revealed 4 specific types of people who can live within your life like shadows, never shouting, never attacking, but always shifting your course away from truth. These people don't just steal your time or energy, they steal your clarity. And once that's gone, everything else follows. This is your court, your mind, your life. And the question is, who have you allowed to sit beside your throne? Back then, the world was changing faster than people could understand. Ancient India was entering a new era. Cities were growing. People were leaving their old village lives behind. Family bonds that once shaped every decision were starting to shift, replaced by friendships formed through trade, politics, or personal gain. The social structure was turning upside down. Merchants were becoming more powerful than warriors. Wealth was starting to outshine wisdom. And status was no longer something inherited, but something earned, bought, or manipulated. In the middle of all this change, people were confused. Who could they trust? Who was really on their side? The old ways of recognizing loyalty no longer applied. And that's when Buddha stepped in, not with fear, but with clarity. He didn't offer a set of rigid rules. He offered insight, timeless, razor-sharp insight into human behavior. Instead of labeling people as good or bad, Buddha observed how they moved, what patterns they repeated, and how their actions either brought harmony or suffering. He saw that some relationships appeared loving on the surface, but quietly chipped away at a person's well-being. So he named these types. He exposed them, not to create paranoia, but to awaken discernment. It's easy to forget, But the Buddha wasn't just a spiritual teacher sitting under a tree. He lived in a time of political complexity, intense social transformation, and constant negotiation of human power. He witnessed firsthand how charm could be used to deceive, how words could be weapons, and how even gentle kindness could lead someone away from the path of awakening. That's what makes his teaching so powerful. It's not a distant mystical warning, it's a deeply human one. And what he saw then we still see now. Only today the masks have changed, but the patterns remain. Not every relationship that feels good is good for you. Some connections feel warm, supportive, even comforting, but quietly pull you off your path without you noticing. Buddha understood this long before modern psychology had words for it. He saw that just as weeds can grow alongside healthy plants, certain people can walk beside us while silently blocking our growth. They don't scream, they don't sabotage us openly. Instead, they blend in using kindness, charm, or familiarity to stay close. And that's what makes them so dangerous. Because the harm doesn't always show up immediately. It shows up when you realize your peace is gone, your confidence is shaken, your spiritual practice is neglected, your energy is always drained. In his deep observations of human nature, Buddha identified 4 specific patterns of relationships that appear supportive, but in reality act as obstacles to our progress. He didn't name them to create fear or judgment. He named them so we could see clearly. He called them the 4 hindrances of fellowship. Each one wears a different face. The one who flatters to manipulate, the one who promises but never delivers, the one who smiles while secretly resenting you, and the one who encourages your weaknesses under the guise of love. Buddha didn't just point them out. He showed us how to recognize their behaviors, understand their intentions, and most importantly, protect our own inner clarity. These 4 types are not just relics of ancient India. They're very much alive today. They exist in digital friendships, at dinner tables, in offices, and spiritual communities. Buddha's warning wasn't about paranoia. It was about discernment, knowing who to trust, knowing when to set boundaries, and remembering that true friendship, the kind that leads us toward wisdom and awakening, always nurtures, not drains, the path. There's something unsettling about a person who always says the right thing. They know exactly when to compliment you, when to agree with you, when to praise your talents. On the surface, they seem like your biggest supporter, but deep down something doesn't sit right. It's not what they say, it's what they don't do. They speak like a best friend, but when you really need help, they're nowhere to be found. Buddha saw this clearly over 2,500 years ago and gave this person a name, Mitta-patirūpaka, the one who wears the mask of friendship. In the Sigalovada Sutta, Buddha described them as the type who gives only when they expect something back, flatters you in public but avoids you in private, and always seems to be around when things are easy, but disappears when life gets hard. This kind of person doesn't enter your life with malice. They enter with a smile, with a small gift, with promises that sparkle, and that's what makes them dangerous. Their kindness feels real, their attention feels warm, and their friendship feels safe. But slowly their pattern starts to show. They take more than they give. They ask for favors but rarely return them. They speak of loyalty, but their actions betray it. Buddha warned that this false friend doesn't just waste your time, they weaken your ability to trust. After being close to someone like this, you begin to doubt your own judgment. You pull back from others, you start to think maybe real friendship isn't possible. But that's exactly why Buddha shared this wisdom, not to make you suspicious of everyone, but to help you discern. Because true friendship, he said, is shown not in how someone speaks, but in how they show up, especially when no one else is watching. He walked into Ananda's life like a breeze on a hot day, smooth, welcome, and almost too good to question. This man was polished, well-spoken, and carried himself like someone who had seen the world and mastered it. He spoke of riches that could double, trade routes that no one else knew about, and partnerships that would make Ananda's name echo beyond Rajagaha. And Ananda, being a good-hearted and trusting merchant, listened. He wanted to believe that good things come to those who share, who trust, who offer their hand in friendship. But what he didn't realize at first was that this man had no intention of building anything with him. He came only to take. At first, the stranger's generosity looked genuine. Small gifts, big compliments, public donations to the local monastery, right where everyone could see. But Buddha, staying quietly at the Bamboo Grove monastery nearby, observed closely. He noticed something that others missed. The stranger never gave unless there was something to gain. His generosity was bait, not a blessing. His words sparkled like gems, but his hands never moved to carry any weight. He praised Ananda's wisdom and wealth, but vanished the moment Ananda needed real help. Slowly, the stranger began to whisper doubts about Ananda's long-time friends. "They don't see your vision," he said. "They're just envious." And that's when it hit Ananda. The gifts, the praise, the promises, it was all a performance. Buddha later taught that such people are like fishers of hearts, using sweet bait to hook those who trust too easily. Through Ananda's experience, we see exactly what Buddha meant by Mitta-patirūpaka, a false friend. And in truth, we've all known someone like that. The question isn't if they exist. The question is, are we still believing their promises? They always know exactly what to say, the right compliments, the perfect timing. They call you brilliant, special, different from the rest. They remember your birthday, send thoughtful messages, and always seem to show up when there's something to gain. These are the people who sparkle on the surface, who sound like the friend you've always wanted, but leave you feeling strangely empty after each interaction. Buddha saw through this pattern long before we had words like narcissist or people-pleaser. In the Sigalovada Sutta, he warned about those who speak sweet words, but keep their hands closed. These people offer kindness only when it benefits them, and their friendship, though wrapped in gold, is hollow inside. What makes them so dangerous is that they rarely look dangerous. In fact, they often look like the nicest person in the room. They're generous, but only in public. Supportive, but only when others are watching. They'll hype you up one minute and quietly disappear the moment you need real support. And if you start to question their loyalty, they'll turn it back on you. "You're being too sensitive," or "I've done so much for you." This is how they maintain control, through guilt, charm, and selective generosity. Buddha taught that one of the greatest forms of suffering comes from misplaced trust. And when we place our trust in those who wear masks of friendship, we lose something deeper than time or money. We lose faith in connection itself. That's the wound these sweet talkers leave behind, but don't let them turn your heart cold. Let them teach you instead. Real friendship, as Buddha taught, reveals itself over time. It doesn't need applause, it doesn't keep score, and it never uses love as leverage. So watch closely, not just for what people say, but for what they do when no one's watching. There's a kind of person who always sounds like they're going somewhere. They speak with passion, they dream out loud, they talk about change, progress, big plans, and they say it all with such conviction that you believe them, you nod, support them, maybe even follow their lead. But time passes, and nothing happens. No steps are taken, no habits are changed, no actions follow the words. At first, you give them grace. But after the fifth conversation that ends the same way, something inside you starts to feel tired. Not angry, just drained. This is the weight of being surrounded by empty noise, and Buddha had a name for this kind of person. In the early Buddhist texts, these people were described as Vācāya Parama, those who speak more than they act. It's not that they lie with bad intentions. Often they genuinely believe what they say. But their promises are like clouds that never rain, beautiful to look at but offering no nourishment. Buddha compared this to a flower without fragrance. It might catch your eye, but it carries no essence. And in the Dhammapada, he reminded us, a man is not wise because he talks much. He who is peaceful, loving, and fearless is truly called wise. The danger of these people is subtle. They're not trying to harm you, but they unintentionally keep you and themselves stuck in the illusion of progress. And if you're not mindful, their words can pull you into their orbit. You'll waste your time hoping, waiting, planning with nothing to show for it. Buddha taught that wisdom is revealed not in what a person says, but in how they live. So ask yourself gently, are you listening to a voice or watching a life? Words are cheap, but presence, true consistent action, is sacred. It was a time of desperation. The skies had stayed silent for too long, and the people of Kosala were losing hope. Crops failed, rivers thinned, and hunger whispered at every doorstep. That's when he appeared, a man with robes just a little too clean for a drought and words a little too polished for a crisis. He claimed to have ancient knowledge, secret rituals passed down through generations, ceremonies that could summon rain. The villagers clung to his every word, not because they were foolish, but because they were afraid. And fear, as Buddha taught, often makes us grasp for promises that sound sweet, even when they hold no truth. This man wasn't violent, he didn't steal by force. Instead, he stole with hope. Each day he gathered the people and led elaborate prayers under the dry sky. He spoke of omens, of signs in the wind, of spirits preparing to bless them. People gave him food, shelter, offerings, because surely someone who speaks so beautifully must be right. But as the days turned into weeks and still no rain fell, doubt crept in. Every failure, he answered with an even grander promise. The spirits are testing our faith, he said. One more ritual, and it will come. Buddha, observing quietly nearby, used this moment to teach something deeper. He didn't just call this man a liar. He pointed to the harm caused when people give their energy to empty words instead of real solutions. While the villagers waited for rain that never came, their wells dried further. Their efforts to conserve, to adapt, to come together in practical ways, those were forgotten. This, Buddha said, is the true danger of empty promises. Not just that they fail you, but that they distract you from the power you already have within. You know the type. They light up the room with their ideas. They speak with such passion that for a moment, you believe every word they say. Their plans sound incredible, big, bold, life-changing. But time passes and nothing happens. The book never gets written. The business never gets started. The promises become noise. And eventually, you realize you've been holding space for someone who lives in the illusion of action, not in the reality of it. Buddha saw this long before we had terms like overpromiser or chronic planner. In his teachings, he called them Vācāya Parama, those who live in the world of words but never cross into the world of effort. Buddha warned us that some people become intoxicated with their own speech. They confuse talking about something with doing it, and it's not always malicious. Often, these individuals truly believe their own words. They feel the excitement of a goal and assume that feeling alone is enough to carry them. But as the Dhammapada teaches, words are not deeds. Without consistent effort, even the noblest goal withers like a flower with no root. The danger here isn't just disappointment, it's distraction. You might find yourself constantly inspired, emotionally invested, even motivated by this person's dreams. But slowly, your energy gets drained by waiting, by hoping, by picking up the pieces, when reality doesn't match their words. Buddha's wisdom reminds us to observe patterns, not promises. A real path is walked, not just spoken about. True intention shows up in silence, in discipline, in what someone does when no one is watching. So if someone in your life keeps talking about who they'll become but never takes a step, let Buddha's teaching guide you. Compassion does not mean carrying someone who refuses to move. You can feel it before you understand it. Something doesn't sit right. The words are warm, the smile is perfect, but deep down, something feels off. This is the kind of person who says all the right things, shows up at the right moments, and plays the part of someone who cares. But behind closed doors, they're quietly rooting for your downfall. They're not enemies in the obvious sense. They're more dangerous than that. They know your secrets, your fears, your hopes, and they use that knowledge not to support you but to slowly weaken you. In Buddhism, these people are known as Pāpamitta, the secret enemies. And Buddha didn't describe them to create paranoia. He described them so we could see clearly. Buddha taught that trust is sacred. When we open our hearts to someone, we give them access to the most vulnerable parts of who we are. But a Pāpamitta uses that trust like a weapon, not always with cruelty. Sometimes it's subtle, a quiet remark that undermines your confidence, a piece of your story told to someone else just for advice, or a well-timed comment that makes you question your own memory, your own truth. These people don't attack with fists. They erode with whispers. And the worst part, they make you feel like the crazy one. In the Anguttara Nikaya, Buddha warned us about these figures. He said they celebrate your failures in private while pretending to mourn them in public. They minimize your successes with faint praise. They pretend to protect your image while tarnishing it behind your back. This is why spiritual clarity is essential, not to judge everyone, but to recognize when your peace is being poisoned by someone who pretends to love you. Buddha's wisdom gives us permission to walk away from what harms us, even if it wears the face of a friend. There's a kind of betrayal that doesn't scream. It doesn't come with slammed doors or obvious lies. It arrives softly, wrapped in concern, cloaked in history, and whispered in your own language. This is the betrayal that comes from someone who knows you deeply, because at one point they truly did care, or maybe they still think they do. That's what makes it so hard to see. Buddha called this type of person the Pāpamitta, the secret enemy. Not because they wear black or hide in shadows, but because they hide behind love, behind loyalty, behind everything you trust. What Buddha realized long before psychology gave it a name is that the people closest to us often hold the most power to harm us. Not through force, but through quiet corrosion. They know what words break you. They remember your mistakes more clearly than your victories. They offer you advice that sounds helpful but always seems to pull you back a step. They might smile at your success in front of others, but something in their energy feels cold, distant, slightly off. And when your life starts falling apart, you don't just feel hurt, you feel confused, because it doesn't look like sabotage, it looks like support. Buddha's warning wasn't just about what these people do, it was about what they make you do to yourself. They twist your inner compass. They blur the lines between love and harm, between truth and manipulation. And once they've done that, they don't have to destroy your peace. You'll slowly do it for them. That's the poison. That's the danger. And that's why Buddha taught us to look deeper, not just at what someone says, but at what consistently happens in their presence. Wisdom begins when we stop explaining away the damage and start seeing the pattern. You know what's deeply unsettling? It's not the enemy who declares their hatred for you. It's the one who calls you friend while slowly undoing your life behind your back. This is the kind of person Buddha warned us about with piercing clarity. They smile in your face, nod in agreement, maybe even cheer you on. But underneath that performance is quiet resentment, jealousy, or bitterness they've never addressed. They'll learn everything about you, your strengths, your fears, your insecurities, not to support you, but to weaponize them when it serves their interest. And often, they'll convince themselves they're justified in doing so. That's what makes them so dangerous. They don't always see themselves as the villain. In Buddhism, this type is known as the Pāpamitta, the corrupted friend. Buddha described them as someone who celebrates your failures in private while pretending to grieve them in public. Someone who gently minimizes your victories, saying things like, "You just got lucky," or "Let's not get carried away." They share your private struggles with others under the excuse of wanting advice or being concerned. But their real motive is to weaken your foundation and twist how others see you. Today, this person could be a co-worker who forwards your emails with subtle digs, a friend who quietly sabotages your opportunities, or a relative who remembers every mistake you've ever made and brings it up at just the right moment to make you feel small. The teachings of Buddha remind us to watch the patterns, not just the words. True friends make us feel safe even in our most vulnerable moments. The secret enemy does the opposite. They leave us doubting ourselves, our memories, even our worth. And that confusion, that's how they win, by making us question what we once trusted without hesitation. There's a kind of love that doesn't look like harm at all. It feels soft. It feels safe. It wraps around you like a warm blanket on a cold morning, and for a while it feels like the most caring thing in the world. But slowly, quietly, it begins to keep you where you are, not because it's evil, but because it's afraid. Afraid of discomfort, afraid of change, afraid that if you grow too much, you'll leave it behind. And so it supports your excuses, validates your bad habits, and makes your stagnation feel like peace. This is what Buddha described when he spoke about the enabler, the friend who, with good intentions, leads you away from your own potential. In the teachings of the Buddha, particularly when addressing the monastic community, he warned that not every kind voice is rooted in wisdom. He spoke of a monk named Channa, someone who was well-liked and deeply supported by his peers, but that support became a crutch. Whenever Channa failed to wake up for meditation, someone reassured him. When he skipped his duties, they told him he deserved rest. Slowly, the fire of discipline in him faded, and Buddha said something profound. The greatest harm doesn't always come from those who oppose your path. It sometimes comes from those who comfort you off of it. Think about your own life. Who makes it easier for you to avoid the hard but necessary things? Who tells you it's okay when what you actually need is accountability? Buddha wasn't telling us to cut off kind people. He was teaching us to recognize when kindness becomes a barrier to awakening. Real compassion helps us grow. It doesn't just soothe, it strengthens. And if we're serious about the path, we must learn to tell the difference. There's a kind of person in our life who never yells, never pressures, never openly betrays us. And yet, they quietly hold us back in ways we don't notice until it's too late. They're the ones who comfort us when we mess up, not by helping us grow, but by convincing us it wasn't really a mistake. They tell us we're fine as we are, even when our spirit is restless. They don't push us, they protect us from discomfort. And while their intentions may be gentle, the impact can be deeply harmful. Buddha saw this clearly. He spoke of those who unknowingly become companions in decline, not because they want to hurt us, but because they fear seeing us struggle. He taught that growth demands effort, discomfort, and sometimes confrontation with our own limitations, and yet the enabler, what Buddha called Apāyasahāya, offers us a detour. They hand us soft pillows when we need a sturdy seat in meditation. They whisper kind excuses when we break our discipline. They tell us we deserve rest, when what we really need is courage. Buddha compared these people to friends who help us drink poison, not because they hate us, but because they can't bear to see us challenged. It's tricky because these people often love us deeply. They want to see us happy. But love without truth becomes attachment, and attachment that avoids discomfort only delays awakening. In the Sangha, even kind monks like Channa were gently corrected, not because Buddha judged them, but because he wanted their liberation. So ask yourself this: are the people closest to you helping you rise, or simply helping you stay the same? Real compassion doesn't just make you feel good, it makes you better. And sometimes the most loving thing a friend can do is not to make you comfortable, but to help you wake up. Sometimes the most dangerous influence in your life isn't the person who hurts you, it's the one who never challenges you. The one who tells you you're perfect just the way you are, even when you're quietly struggling. The one who says, "Don't worry about it, you've been through enough." Every time you try to change, it sounds like love, it feels like support. But Buddha saw this for what it truly is, a soft, sweet form of sabotage. Because it doesn't pull you backward. It simply makes it easy to stay exactly where you are. Comfortable, unchanging, slowly declining. Buddha spoke about this through the example of enabling friends, those who mean well, but do harm by encouraging our laziness, justifying our excuses, and soothing us into stagnation. He taught that even kindness can be destructive when it removes the discomfort required for growth. Think of it like this: a lotus only blooms in the mud. If someone keeps you out of the mud because they don't want you to suffer, they also keep you from blooming. That's the danger, not in cruelty, but in comfort that becomes a cage. And in today's world, it's everywhere. It's the friend who always agrees with you, even when you're clearly in the wrong. The family member who lets you off the hook because you've always been like that. The influencer who tells you self-love means never doing hard things again. But Buddha's wisdom teaches otherwise. Growth demands friction. Awakening isn't cozy, it's honest. He reminds us that true companions on the path are not those who protect our comfort, but those who protect our potential. And if someone truly cares about you, they'll help you rise, not rest in your limitations. That's real love. That's real wisdom. They don't always come crashing into your life like storms. Sometimes they arrive quietly, wrapped in kindness, speaking your language, meeting your needs. That's what makes them so dangerous. Over time, they become familiar. Their presence starts to feel normal. And before you know it, the damage is done. Not through a single act, but through a slow erosion of your spirit, your confidence, your clarity. Buddha didn't list these 4 types of people just to teach us how to avoid pain. He revealed them so we could recognize patterns that cloud our judgment and block our growth. These aren't just individuals, they're energies. They're recurring dynamics that show up again and again, wearing different faces in different stages of our life. There's the one who flatters you endlessly, but only when they need something in return. The one who talks about big plans but never follows through. The one who knows you deeply but quietly resents your happiness. And the one who comforts you so well that you stop growing entirely. What makes these types so effective is that they don't seem like enemies. In fact, they often feel like support. That's why Buddha called them hindrances of fellowship. They look like friends, but they move like shadows, slipping into your life, staying just long enough to pull you off your path. But here's the beauty of Buddha's teaching. He didn't leave us in fear. He gave us awareness. He gave us tools to see clearly. When you understand these 4 shadows, you gain the power to step out of the fog. You learn how to choose wisely, love wisely, and protect the sacred space of your mind and heart. This isn't about closing yourself off from people. It's about opening your eyes to the ones who deserve to walk with you. The people around you shape the path beneath your feet, so choose those who walk with truth, not just talk with charm. The Buddha reminded us that clarity is the beginning of freedom, and awareness is the seed of peace. If this teaching brought even a little light to your path, let that light guide you forward. Watch the next video on your screen to continue this journey into deeper wisdom. And thank you, truly, for being a part of Buddhist journey with us. Stay mindful, stay wise.